why did it take 10 months for this to come to light? Why did it take 10 months?
I love
for
that
this to get
question.
released?
You guys you already know the answer.
Welcome back to Square Off. U.S. Senate candidate Kari Lake may have loved that question, but she never answered it during a rambling Q&A session on Rumble last week. Why did she wait 10 months to release the audio she recorded of then Republican Party State Chair Jeff DeWit offering her a job or money to take a 2-year break from politics? Joining us to discuss the unanswered questions and the rubble of the Republican blowup, plus the potential election impact, are Penich-Thacker, Democratic consultant at Agave Strategy, and Barrett Marson, a Republican consultant at Marson Media. Welcome back to Square Off.
Good morning.
Let's start with disclosures. Any financial connections, other connections to the people or issues we're going to discuss? Don?
No.
Barrett?
No, other than Kari Lake blocks me on Twitter, but otherwise, no connection.
Thank you for letting us know you're not alone. A note for viewers, we are taping this ahead of the Republican Party meeting on Saturday, so we're not gonna go there. What a week, so many questions, beginning with Donald Trump stiffing the Republican Party. Big fundraiser on Friday night. Said, I have to be in New York for a trial, the E. Jean Carroll trial. Lo and behold, he stayed 5 minutes and walked out of the trial. He could have flown here and been here by noon.
I think after the longest Tuesday, Wednesday month that we've ever had in Arizona politics of this year, he just wasn't going to come. He was not going to be part of the, as we would say, the Michigas of the state party fracas that was going on this week. So I think it was a fait accompli. He could have been at Mar-a-Lago enjoying the sun rather than coming here. There was no way he was going to come here after this.
Michigas translation, craziness.
Just crazy.
Craziness. This really hurt the party, though. This was a big fundraiser and maybe even a kind of consumer issue. Many people bought tickets, spent hundreds of dollars.
Yeah, what's really astounding about this is how clear it has now made it to the world that Kari Lake is willing to sacrifice her own party, that she is willing to burn bridges with friends and give up, and this is a very obvious example, fundraising, donor relationships to get a week of headlines. She has given up a seat at the grown-ups table for the rest of her career, such as it is.
My biggest problem with this is, how many voters did you gain by pulling this stunt? Yeah. And I believe that answer is 0. And in fact, you might have lost some actual voters out there. And that's the problem. She is not doing a lot to bring in new voters, for sure, but this stunt probably loses actual voters. And certainly doesn't bring in anyone new.
And that she has been cooking up this stunt for this amount of time. This was not a knee-jerk bad decision. This shows what her priorities are and are not. And I think if you ever considered voting for her in Arizona, you've got to know that she will always put her own spotlight ahead of the interests of residents, of voters, and even her own party.
And now, you know, Donald Trump must wonder, what does she have on tape from me?
Oh, yeah.
You know,
everyone
people
who's ever
in the
met
MAGA
with her
movement must wonder what, you know, all the conversations I ever had with Kari Lake, what did I say?
That's right.
Well, you know, there is an open question that I don't think we can answer, is what role Donald Trump or his people played in all this. That's unknowable. We don't have any facts.
No. And I've seen online that there was some rumor going around that it was Donald Trump's people, his campaign people, that actually, you know, approached DeWit to approach. But who knows?
We could tease out a scenario, but again, there's really nothing to support it. I saw the same tweet.
Yeah.
You know.
And, you know, Jim Lehman is mentioned several times on that tape. And, you know, he had political, you know, obviously he ran for Senate.
Well, let's pause there for a second, because unanswered question. If you listen to the tape, it is clear the subtext for that, and one of the subtexts is Jeff DeWit was not loyal enough. Jim Lehman employed him when he returned to Arizona from Washington, D.C. after serving in the Trump administration. Lehman, I think, was state director for the DeSantis campaign. DeWit was going that way, too. Is that a potential reason? Just DeWit wasn't loyal enough. As party chair, he did not push Trump nearly as hard, really at all.
Well, what he
not
didn't
the way
push,
Kelly Ward did.
Well, what he didn't push was election denialism. And, you know, as I told you, Bram, earlier, you know, he's too MAGA for the establishment, but he is too establishment for the MAGA wing of the party. And so became a man without a home at the state party.
Here's what we do know. While all this is melting down inside the Republican Party, Arizona Democrats are staying calm, cool, and collected, focusing on recruiting, developing, and supporting candidates who will win these positions, just as they have been for the past 2 cycles, where Republicans have been purging wins. And this just goes to show that there is no, you know, hope in the horizon of that party getting underway, getting organized. And Democrats are just laser focused, listening to and focusing on what Arizona residents, businesses care about: water, education, reproductive rights, the economy, while Republicans are spinning in family drama.
Look, Bram, the state party chair has 3 jobs: to raise money, to raise more money, and then to raise a boatload of money. And I don't know that the next state party chair will be able to rub 2 nickels together in that state account. And so there will have to be another entity maybe that steps up to raise money. But there is a real problem right now on the Republican side about raising money for a very important election coming up in 10 months or whatever it is.
Good point. That ties into the failed fundraiser and also what Jeff DeWit did accomplish. He managed to raise some money from outside sources.
Right.
National sources. Folks here in Arizona, the money here is not willing to play with this party.
He did raise some in-state money, some, you know, small dollar donations. He was starting to get on track, but a year in, he was just starting to get on track.
Let's go back to that question raised at the top. Why did Kari Lake wait 10 months, sit on this tape for 10 months before it was released to the dailymail.com?
Yeah, you know, I don't know why she released it at this particular time. I don't think we know all the background of that, but it was clearly her and her team that had control of this tape, that released it, and they sat on it. You know, I think she said on her Rambling Rumble that she had forgotten about it. But then she also said it was maybe the worst thing she had ever heard in her life. I'm not sure.
But she also said, I've been talking about this for months and nobody's listened to me. So,
yeah,
I don't know.
There's a lot of inconsistencies, so I don't know why she released it Tuesday to the Daily Mail, but I do know that, you know, she had some grudge against Jeff DeWit, and she decided this was a good time to effectively get rid of him.
Days before the annual meeting.
Right.
That timing is hard to ignore. I want to talk about one thing that does bother voters, and sincerely, when they see this, read these stories, is the idea that Jeff DeWit, as party chair, was offering Kari Lake a job or money to stay out of it was the Senate race at the time, right? He was offering her that to stay out. Folks look at that and say, hey, why isn't that bribery? And why isn't what Kari Lake did blackmail? But stick with the DeWit part. Why isn't that bribery?
Look, this is, you know, Barrett just said one of the probably 2 main jobs of a party chair is to raise money. The other main fundamental job of a party chair is to recruit, support and develop, and sometimes prune out candidates so that they have a better shot as a party of winning seats and getting their policy objectives achieved. So these conversations are not usually recorded by people you consider friends. But these conversations happen every day to try to position your party for the most possible wins. And that is often a conversation about what opportunities exist for you down the road, what job you might be better suited for. So
it's usually a little bit more
that this was,
and
yes,
more couched in nuance and not so blatantly, hey, can I slip you $1 million or something?
Right. Although
there's usually more.
We should absolutely believe him when he says that that was heavily edited. But yes, the way he words things.
There's no doubt.
You know,
there's no doubt
definitely,
that tape is edited.
Absolutely. It definitely speaks to the fact that he thought he was talking to someone he could trust. He didn't choose his words in the best way possible. That's all true. But I think the bigger concern for most people is not bribery, blackmail of internal politics, but just what does this say about the people whose names are going to be on our ballot? What does this say about what they care about? Kari Lake cares about Kari Lake.
And I think, one thing this shows is that any conversation you have with Kari Lake is recorded. So if you're a senator walking the halls and or sitting in an office and you think you're having a private conversation with your fellow senator, if she happens to win that race, that is not private, and you may have your words come back at you edited in the future.
Let's end with this part of the discussion with the impact on the election and Kari Lake's chances of winning the Senate seat. Is Mitch McConnell saying right now to himself, you know what, maybe I don't need Arizona to win, and I don't want to put any money on this person who walks around with a mic?
Right, and I think that's a real problem for Kari Lake, that she doesn't want the establishment help, and she may in fact not get the establishment help.
All right, I do want to end on the stories we missed amid all this rubble. Dawn, you have one you want to bring up. Barrett has. Let's start with you.
Yes, some absolutely huge news that got clobbered by this Republican drama is that the Arizona Department of Water Resources announced that this Tuesday they will hold a public meeting which is meant to explore the possibility of executive action on water protection if the legislature fails to do something. So for 40 years, we have not seen water management and protection done by our state legislature. We are at a crisis point in some areas. And so this is a loud and clear signal from the governor to the legislature. Come up with reasonable bipartisan solutions to protect these communities who are pleading for water management, or I will.
All right, Barrett?
One thing that really got missed last week, former head of the Arizona National Guard, Mick McGuire, submitted an op-ed into the Republic. Very important, we're talking about the election. Right now, there's a possibility that thousands of military members who serve overseas may be disenfranchised unless Arizona moves some election dates and some of the processes that counties employ before and after the election. And he wrote about how a lot of thousands, maybe 12,000 military members could be disenfranchised. That really did get overlooked because it was also the same day Michigas DeWit happened.
Yeah. And the election calendar issue, which your wife, Jen Marson,
Absolutely.
very talented Jen Marson, talked about on this show back in October. The election calendar issue, they say, must be fixed by
Absolutely.
February.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I think he wrote an important piece, and I think it got buried in all this new stuff.
All right. Got to end it there. Penich-Thacker, Barrett, Marson, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.